So good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's session. My name is Moyo, in case I don't think I've ever introduced myself at one of these things. And welcome to today's session as part of our workshop series in Product Manager Africa. In case you're joining us for the first time, we're a community of products professionals, so not just product managers. And the aim of the community is for us to share experiences, information, resources, so we can grow and upskill. Today's session is largely based on creating product strategy. And this is a question that has come up a couple of times, especially with new and transitioning PMs and even PMs at all levels, where you join a company, especially startups, there isn't like a clear plan. So many things are happening at the same time, and it's difficult for you to know where to start from. How can you establish like some sort of direction that everybody is aligned on and we can follow, and you're not just flying in all directions. So we have Victor Aboh here. I will allow him to introduce himself shortly, who would be taking us through this practical session. So it's not just us talking about product strategy, what it is, it's also giving you some direction on how to put it together, irrespective of your level in products management. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining. Victor, you'll have the floor.
Moya sounds like she's speaking from experience there. It's
yes.
So yeah, really good to be here today. Today we're going to be talking about how to create product strategy, understanding what exactly it is, and then a few sort of practical steps on how to kind of go about that process. In terms of my background, I've been in tech for about 10, 11 years now. Started off in the telco, multiple roles for about 5 years, architecture, business intelligence, some product management, even though we didn't call it that then, and then switched over to a seed level fintech in about 2016, and I've been there for the last almost 6 years as well. And I'll be transitioning to starting my own product consulting next month. So really good to be here and kind of share some of the knowledge that I have. Again, I'll encourage everyone to follow on the link. I see like only 3 people have done it so far, because there are questions that I'll be asking, and then you can actually respond directly within those links. So should I give people a few more minutes to do that? I think we have 13 people on the call. Can we get 5, 6 people, more people to join the link, please?
Yeah, at least a third. I have shared it in case you joined and you haven't been able to find the link.
So come on, guys. Saturday morning, but we can do it. Guys and ladies, sorry. Okay, so let me go ahead and get started. So the first thing, we're going to do a quick poll to kind of gauge where everyone is right now in their product journey. So if you wouldn't mind, just real quick in your on your screens, you go ahead and kind of fill out where you are. So what level you are. Are you a product manager, product owner, designer, other, just kind of so that we have a feel of what the audience is today. I think this is a really nice mix. For those who are sort of product leads, and as I'm talking, if you have 1, 2 things to add, please feel free to jump in and just add to the conversation. Would love to kind of get more input as we go in. Why is product strategy important in the first place? I really like this graphic because it puts all the craziness of running a company like in some sort of like order, right? And we see that where that starts is with the company vision. Great companies have a vision. They have something that they're trying to achieve, a way that they're trying to change the world, right? And that vision is clear, it's crisp, it's direct, people know it, like it's not ambiguous within the company. And then what we do, and that's kind of the job of the CEO, is to set that company vision with the CEOs and the directors, And then we start to break that vision down into business strategy and strategic goals. And then what we see here is like, you might have multiple products. And so this is more for like bigger companies. So if you think about Google, Apple, Netflix, some of these companies, they will have 20, 30, even more product lines. And each of those product lines will take their bit of the strategic goal and create a product vision for that, create a product strategy that derives from the vision, and that maps down to goals, roadmaps, and then the actual delivery of the roadmap. And so your product strategy is never created in a vacuum, right? You should never just sit and say, hey, we need to have product strategy, and just kind of go in a room and start figuring it out. Everything has to derive from company goals. There's sort of a framework for thinking about what a good product is, right? Where it has to provide value to the business. It has to be feasible in terms of the technology and, can we achieve what we're trying to go after? And then from a customer perspective, it needs to be usable and valuable. And so even if you come up with a great solution that isn't valuable for your company, that's not a great product, right? Because it doesn't scale. You don't make enough money to stay in business, right? So we should always be trying to optimize. Yes, we want to focus on our customers, but we also want to kind of keep in view what our goals are as a company. And that kind of gives us some real guards to come up with ideas and innovate, right? So our product strategy kind of sits here under the product, but it is derived from the business and the strategic goals. And so if we talk a little bit about product vision, so even within the strategic goal, your product vision also needs to be, for lack of a better word, visionary, right? So that's kind of like, for a particular product, that's where are you going with it? What do you want to achieve in the next 5 to 10 years that is inspirational? And this is the kind of thing that you would you would use when you're recruiting, for example, and you're interviewing, if you're a head of PM, product management, and you're talking to PMs and they're saying like, what's the product about? That's what you share with them to get them excited, to say like, here's how we plan to change this space in the next 5 to 10 years. Your product strategy then derives from the vision, right? It's now like, here's how we want to do it. And I'll talk a bit more about that in the next slide, but I want to just set that context for the product vision. So that's not something we hear about a lot, but it's also important for us to create product visions and not just have that one company vision. Okay, so one more poll. The question here is, how many of us would say that our companies where we work right now have compelling business goals, a compelling business vision, and do we understand how our product addresses those goals or how it maps back into the company vision? So if you can take a little bit of time to answer this real quick. But one thing that is clear is that this is not easy to do, right? And there are a lot of reasons why there's a lot of ambiguity. Sometimes you work in a company and somebody brings an idea that is just out of nowhere, and it's like, why are we doing this? And it's because sometimes there's a lack of that discipline to sort of like, here's what we are, here's what we're about, and this is how we're going to evaluate ideas. And so at the end of the day, thank you for the answers. I think where we are, we're like 30% neutral, 6% disagree, 20% agree. Thank you so much for the answers. At the end of the day, product strategy is hard, and there are a couple of reasons for this, which I'll be going through here. Richard Rumelt, he's sort of a professor of strategy, and he talks here about bad strategy and says it's the active avoidance of the hard work of crafting a good strategy. When leaders are unwilling or unable to make choices among competing values and parties, bad strategy is the consequence. And so what we see here is sometimes what we have in our companies is that we are not willing to say no to what might be good ideas, but there are just so many of them, right? So we're either stretched too thin in doing too many things in too many industries. We want to try too many things. And so that's avoidance of sitting down and mapping out like, this is what we're about, always leads to bad strategy, right? And on the flip side, good strategy, doesn't pop out of, some, tool matrix chart, fill in the blank scheme. Instead, it takes talented leaders identifying one or two critical issues that will move the needle, and then focusing and concentrating action and resources on them. And so what we'll find soon is that we need to be focused when it comes to product strategy. It helps to focus our teams. It helps to have us not be stretched too thin doing too many things, but how do we solve this problem for these sets of customers? So let's dive into what exactly product strategy is. Like I was alluding to earlier, it is the how for your product vision. And so your product vision is going to be inspirational. If you're Uber, and we'll talk about Uber down, you're like saying, I'm going to change how people move from point A to point B. I'm going to make it safer, cheaper, etc. And then your strategy is going to be how you intend to do it, not even not the technologies, not the actual features, but just generally, this is our strategy for how to achieve the vision, right? It highlights the problems that you want to solve, not the solutions. And it's not the tactics. So it's not your roadmap. A product roadmap is not product strategy. Your product roadmap is just a list of features that you've already identified will help you solve problems that you've identified in your product strategy that you want to solve, right? So it's not your product roadmap. And importantly, it is informed by insights. So this is something that sometimes we don't do a good enough job with, and we need to be collecting more insights and using them more regularly to inform almost everything we do in our product teams, right? So customer research, competitive analysis, and there are other forms of research which we'll go into shortly. And then lastly, I think there's a product thinker who I respect a lot. His name is Matty Kagan. And he talks about the differences between empowered teams and feature teams, right? When you have an empowered team, you give them a problem to solve, and that's what the product strategy is. It's like, here are the problems we want to solve. We want to do this in this space, and you hand that over to your product teams, which are multidisciplinary. So not just product managers, developers, designers, and you give them hard problems to solve. I think a lot of us would be more fulfilled in our roles if we were solving problems as opposed to just doing delivery, right? Like, here's a set of requirements for you to deliver. So the product strategy enables that kind of collaboration. It enables us to own the problem and to own the solutions that we're putting out there. So here are some recipes for how to create good product strategy. Number one is focus on critical business problems. We want to make sure that we are focusing on problems that have impact, right? And so if we are doing 10, 15 main things, that's way too much, right? As a company, we need to be focused on 1, 2, maybe 3 things that were like, these are the things that are most important to us. And that allows us to have even better throughput, right? When we're spread too thin, it's almost like we don't really make progress. We're doing 10 things, but we're not making enough progress with them. And so that's where leadership comes into play, right? Because it's our leaders that help decide these are the things that we need to work on. And I said that's why it's a good idea to try to get out more of our leaders to understand product strategy. So send them a YouTube video, of something, just kind of like, hey, I watched this thing, kind of like, if they're not already believers in this kind of stuff, it's really important to get their buy-in so that we can actually like focus on key problems within our companies. I talked about insights earlier. So these are like 4 examples of insights that we can be using, right? So once we know what kinds of problems we want to solve, the next thing is to gather insights about them. Your qualitative insights are generally sort of like why things are happening. So if quantitative is sort of like, if you're already launched, you're in the market, you can be getting a lot of quantitative feedback from your apps. How are people using your apps? What's the return rate? What's the churn rate? Stuff like that. So those are things that are happening. Your qualitative will tell you, quantitative tells you what is happening, and your qualitative will tell you why it is happening, right? And so these are kind of what you get by sitting down with your customers and interviewing them, or doing prototype interviews where you let them see how they're using your app and things like that. And so that combination can be really powerful because we need to understand, and I think we need to kind of go back to user-centered designs, user-centered approaches to our solutions, right? Because our users are the reasons that we are in this business. And we need to kind of put them at the center of the solutions that we are coming up with. And then the final two, technology. Technology is always changing, always improving, and it's always a good thing to be keeping an eye on, like what the newer technologies are that are not fads, but are real things, right? That we can actually deploy within our ecosystems. And of course, industry trends. There are a lot of insights you can get from your competitors, or even other industries that can potentially add to what you prefer to your users. And then lastly, once we've done all the focus, once we've done all the insights, and we've come up with something we want to do, we need to now do coordination across our product teams. And this is where leadership also plays a role, right? They help to say, hey, okay, here's the problem we want to solve. Team A, I think you're best to solve this one. Team B, I think you're best to solve this other one. I'm kind of helping them remove roadblocks and helping them come up with just giving them the space. It's kind of like active leadership. So not micromanaging them, but giving them enough room to be innovative with their solutions. Okay. So now let's talk about how we actually bring all of that to life. How do we implement all of that in our real, when we go back to our companies, what do we do? So one concept to take a look at, and I'm sure most of us have heard about product market fit already, right? It's how does our product match the needs within of our customers. So if you look at the bottom two stages of this pyramid, we have our target customer and we have their underserved needs. And that together forms the market. There's sort of a nice 4x4 matrix I've seen that has your customer needs and whether they are articulated, right? So if you have a customer and their needs are articulated, typically that's where everybody is already. Like everybody knows that those customers want XYZ, right? And they're articulated, they're usually met already. Where you now want to focus on is where the needs are not met, right? And that's where potentially there's a gap for you to fill, for your company to fill. Another interesting thing is sometimes when the need isn't even articulated, right? And so that's where sometimes we need to be we need to pay a lot of attention during our customer interview, because sometimes they're not saying, I want this, but you can kind of get that for like, oh, but you said you do this process and you go here, you go here. They might not say, I want a solution that helps me do this quicker, but they are explaining how they do work. And you might come up with the idea that, oh, I think we can do that better. So that's the power of those qualitative approaches. But in any case, you have your market, which is a combination of your target market and your underserved needs. And at the top is your value proposition, your feature set, and your user experience. And your product strategy lives in that value proposition box. That's how you're saying, these are the problems I want to solve for my customer. And then it ultimately helps you come up with the value propositions that you want to use. So we see that we don't do this in a vacuum, right? We need to have that research. We need to know who are our customers. We need to know what are their underserved needs, what are their needs that have not been communicated, and here's how we are going to serve them. And so in the next few slides, we'll be diving in on how to analyze some of those needs and how to kind of pick the point that we want to play in as a whole. So there's a model called the Kano model, and it helps us kind of map out customer need versus satisfaction. And so there are three main levers that we can use when we are evaluating our customer needs. If we look at the first one, which is the performance, that's something our customers want more of, right? So if we're using a laptop, for example, we always want more RAM processing. We want our RAM to be more efficient. We want our battery life to go longer, right? So if I was a laptop provider and I came up with a technology that lets you use your laptop on battery for 2 days, customers will always want more of that, right? And so those are sort of some of the things that fall in your performance criteria. More is better. And so the more of it that you give, the more user satisfaction you have, and the less you give, the less user satisfaction. Then when you have the must-haves, so these are things that your customers believe that this is standard. So you wouldn't release a product that didn't have this, right? So for example, if we stick with the laptop analogy, people expect their laptops to have functional keyboards, right? So if we came up with a tool today, or like, oh, I have a laptop and then the keyboards are not functional, or it doesn't have any ports, stuff like that, then we are missing something that our customers currently expect as a must-have, right? And so we see that having it here is just meeting the need. It doesn't quite give us user satisfaction, but when we don't have it, we lose user satisfaction, right? So that's something that we should be building in based off of the industry that we're in. We should know, like, these are what customers expect, and we should definitely have that as things that we definitely will be providing. And then finally, are the delighters. These are things that our customers don't even expect, but it's almost like this is the secret sauce. This is the thing that separates us from our customers. And so it's a good idea to always have one, maybe two delighters in your product that it sort of separates you from your competition. So as we see, not having a delighter isn't terribly bad in terms of user satisfaction, but when we have that, we could potentially wow our users and make them even more likely to use our product. So we're going to take this understanding, we're going to transfer it to a table called actually, one more step. We'll transfer all of this stuff to a table called the product strategy grid. And this was formed by Dan Olsen. So before we go on, just to kind of reiterate that we should be articulating user problems and not solutions. We shouldn't be saying the app that allows users to book rides, for example. Like, that's not strategy, right? That's on a solution. What is the user trying to achieve by using your app? That's on the problem side, because you might find that there are better solutions. The solution might not be an app, right? But if you box yourself into thinking about an app, that's on the solution space, and you might miss some potential for innovation. So I have, and then we want to be describing the actions from the user point of view. What is the user trying to achieve that we are now going to help them with? So I put a sort of a table to compare. So for example, if we're like a neobank and we identify that one of the biggest things we want to tackle is to help our users open bank accounts quickly, that would be on the problem side of things. A solution would be mobile app that pre-fills account details, right? So we want our product teams to come up with the right solutions after going through a process of testing, brainstorming, all of that. We don't want, as leaders, we don't want to be telling our users, our product teams, go create an app that does this. We should let that come out of the iterative process with our teams, right? So just a note that, as product leaders, when we're framing product strategy, we want to kind of stay on the problems. We want to give our product teams problems to solve. Okay, so I mentioned that we're going to put all of this in a grid. And so this is sort of a template for how you can analyze your competition and what separates you from the competition. So for example, we talked about the must-haves, your performance benefits, and your delighters. So again, this is simplistic. There's only one must-have, but realistically, you will have a list of a couple of must-haves that need to be in your app. And then you want to make sure that you provide that value, right? If a competitor doesn't, then that's a reason you're better than them already. So we want to make sure that we always provide our must-haves, whatever that is for our given industry. And then our performance benefits, you will likely also have a couple of them. So we can see that not everybody is scored equally. And this is not necessarily where you want to go high, right? So as a team, you might say, what are we great at, right? Let's go ahead and let's be best at performance benefit 3, and let's be medium low, in the rest of them. But you basically kind of pick your battles with the performance benefits. The point isn't necessarily to be high across everything, but pick your battles based off of the team you have, the technologies you have, etc. And then you want to try and have 1, maybe 2 delighters, right? And so when you craft your strategy this way, it gives you a holistic idea of what you want to end up building. And it gives your product teams an idea of what to start testing, brainstorming around, and asking customers in interviews about. Okay. So let's take a look at Uber, an Uber use case. So I believe about 9 to 10 years after Uber, this is post fundraising, one of the founders sort of released their original pitch deck, which kind of showed us some of the things that they used to raise money on. So we'll kind of use them as an example and to understand how they were thinking about their product back then. And so back in the day, they were called Uber Cab. This is when they were more focused on kind of the luxury experience. And so this is from their deck, right, where they're saying cabs don't guarantee pickup, can take a long time. Of course, this was in the US market. Cabs aren't as safe or clean as limos. Car services require 1 to 3 hours notice. Car services transfers average over $60. And so this gives us a clue as to who Uber was saying as their competition: cabs, car services, right? And then the last bullet point here shows how Uber intended to compete. And I said Uber Cab will be faster and cheaper than a limo, but nicer and safer, than a taxi cab. And so it gives us an idea of the criteria that they were using. Now, when it comes to limo services, car services, they want to be faster and cheaper than them. And then when it comes to taxi cabs, they want to be nicer and safer. They didn't say they want to be cheaper than taxi cabs, right? So they are positioning themselves sort of in the middle and making a bet that enough people want that service in the middle. So if we take a look at the product strategy grid, their competition were taxis, car services, limo car services, must-haves that will get you to your destination. So if you don't get me to my destination, then you haven't done your job as a car service, right? As a taxi or car service. So everybody is doing that. Now your performance benefits. Can we get a ride faster, right? Taxis are sort of medium, especially in the US, New York, you come outside, you hail a cab. And then car services, they're not, they're not really fast. And they are saying that we are going to be high here. Saving money, taxis are definitely cheaper than limo services. So limo services were going to be expensive, and they say we're going to be medium. We're not going to be as cheap as some taxis, but we're going to be definitely cheaper than car services. And then a nicer experience. The limo is kind of customized. They'll drive up to your house, you step into a limo, and they're saying like, yeah, we're going to try and match that. Especially, again, this was when they were doing black cars, Mercedes. We're going to match that, but, you know, we're going to be cheaper than that limo. And then the safe, they're going to, they say taxis are not safe because it's public, all of that stuff, and then they're going to be safe. And then in your delighters, that's where they kind of like change the game, right? Because now you can book with your phones and you don't have to call, you don't have to speak to anybody. You go on your phone and say, pick me at this place, and you can see where the car is. And so they basically were able to craft their own product strategy and then give this to a product team to solve, right? So if you can imagine, as a product team, your boss might tell you, hey, how can we create something where you can book without having to call someone? And so as a product team, you start to iterate and you start to think, okay, now mobile apps are really quick. There's GPS that's available. Can we combine GPS and that, this together to create an experience for the customer? And so we're giving problems, the customer benefits in terms of problems that they have and to the product teams instead of giving solutions to our product teams. Okay, so I'm going to recap real quick and then we'll jump into a workshop. So one is what good product strategy is. It gives us the how for our product vision. It is informed by insights. And I think this is a huge one that we don't always have a culture of. And we want to be trying to get insights from our customers on a fairly regular basis, bi-weekly, monthly, weekly if you can, and incorporating those insights on a company level. It's focused on a few items that can move the needle for the company. And is focused on problems and not the solution, on the problem and not the solution. Our product strategy is not static by any means. The product vision is that long-term vision for the company. It could be 5, 10 years. But our product strategy, we should be able to reevaluate that every year or two and come back to the table and look at the facts again and say, okay, here's a new strategy for how to achieve our goals. And then lastly, it allows the product teams to identify novel, innovative solutions for our end customers. So when we give our teams problems to solve, that gets them thinking, right? As opposed to when you give them a solution, they just go and implement the solution. And typically you don't have a lot of ownership over that, right? Because they told me to do X, I did X, right? So that's it for a lot of us. So that's, I think, the end of this. The next slide, we're jumping into a workshop. So I'll pause in case there are any questions that anyone has. I'll go ahead and post the link again for those who might have joined late. So you can go ahead and jump on to join the workshop that we're going into. Okay, so let's jump into the workshop. So let's imagine that we are we're company X and we are a personal finance company operating in the digital wealth sector. Let's help company X come up with its product strategy today. Its vision is to help average Nigerians understand finance and grow their wealth 10x. So that's the vision for this product. We want to help people understand finances and want to help people grow their wealth. So we're going to go and dive into how we would go about that process of creating a product strategy for company X. So let's jump into the exercise. And we're going to try and do this using that Kano model in a sense, but also we're going to start by asking ourselves, what are the must-haves and the performance features that we would introduce into this company. So let's assume that everybody on this call is a customer. We all use money. We all need money. And I'm sure we all want to grow our wealth. So let's go ahead and let's assume that we are the customers and answer some questions. So, so the question we're answering now is, what issues do you currently face managing your finances or your wealth? So let's put our thoughts, and let's assume like we're running a customer, like user research right now. So the floor is yours. Let's get our ideas flowing in here. So put in your thoughts. What issues do you currently have with doing this? Yeah, good inputs coming in. And I promise you, I'm not starting a personal finance startup. Really good, very good inputs coming in. Nice. How to invest. So I think I'm seeing a bit of trends, right? So I think one trend is around education, right? So we have one trend around education. I'm seeing a trend around like budgeting, handling unexpected expenses. Yeah, micro investment options. These are really good. So you see that I could have, I could say, hey, I'm going to start a startup. This is the problem people have. And just kind of only really think about the problems I have or the problems somebody has told me about. But when we go and talk to customers, we see, we get a more nuanced view of like, oh, these are the issues people are having, right? And you want to talk to a sizable amount of people. So yeah, these are really good. So I want you guys to kind of like take a look at them, see which ones resonate with you. We'll move over to using that Kano model real quick. And then I want us to kind of take some of these ideas and apply them in there, right? So without graph, let's see how to separate spending money, investing. Yeah, okay, very cool. So thank you so much. So if we jump to the next one, so let's assume, again, in real life, there will be multiple steps we would take. We wouldn't just take that input. We would sit down, we would brainstorm, we would create some prototypes, we'll put that in front of users. There's a whole process we would go through. But let's assume like we're gonna like fast track that process. What would you say this app needs to have as a must-have? And what would you say it needs to have as a performance feature, right? So let's put in some ideas in here, like thinking through some of the things you saw on that previous slide. Which ones would you say are must-haves? Which ones would you say are performance features? I remember performance is the more you have it, the better. Like, you're like, okay, this is a great app. It does this more better than this other app. I want more of that, and I'm willing to pay for it, so I'm willing to use it. And which one would you say, if you didn't have this as a base, I wouldn't even use you, right? So let's kind of put some of those ideas, and maybe you can prefix by saying must have or performance before the idea as well. Oh yeah, that's a great one. The accounting feature, yep. If it's not doing 1 + 1 correctly, then that's a bad look. Oh, they're available offline as well as a must-have. Person is strict. Open information. Yep. Must-have. Yeah. Savings feature on the app, investment feature. Okay. Okay. Yeah, these are really great, right? And again, we wouldn't typically come up with these in a vacuum, right? We would look at the other apps that are in the space. We might look at a Bamboo, we might look at a Trove and say, what does Trove offer? What does Bamboo offer? And there are a couple of other apps in that market space, right? We would look at them and say, okay, yeah, these, according to what we have seen, are the must-haves. Let's plan to also include them in our space. And so we can start to see that, okay, we're now starting to break down, and that gives us an idea of what we have to build, what we think we should do a good job as, right, in our performance. Yeah, thanks a lot for the feedback. And now for the potentially interesting parts, what would we say are going to be our delighters for this app, right? So what is going to make us stand apart from our competitors, and what's going to make us, customers just really be like, wow, you can really do that for me. So let's put some ideas of some delighters in here. Like, I think I saw one about, something about stopping you before you spend money. Like, what if your app vibrates before it just can't tell before you make a bad financial decision and it vibrates, that would be awesome, right? I love, growth projections, kind of like, hey, how much will I have? Because remember, our vision is getting you to 10x, right? So if we are projecting you to that 10x, that's a great one. Yep, tips. So leaderboards, that's a great one. Gamification is a great way to drive engagement. So again, that whole idea of educating us and kind of helping us get to 10x, right? So that's our vision. And we need to have a few delighters that get people there quickly, or whatever way aligns with the company's goals. Right? Yep. So you guys, I think you guys get it, but once again, in real life, we wouldn't do this in a vacuum and in a few minutes, right? We would go through a whole process of engaging with our customers, with brainstorming with our product teams, prototyping as well, and kind of making sure that whatever, before we actually build, that customers actually want what we're about to give them. So definitely enjoy sharing this information. And then the floor is open in case there are any questions that we might have about the topic.
Okay. I'm sure the host wants to answer another question about computer analysis, but I'll just quickly drop mine now. So you mentioned something. Thank you very much at first. First, you mentioned something about empower teams and future teams. So I was thinking, most times when a lot of people want to go about problem solving nowadays, according to my observation anyway, people usually seem to like always go towards what's the tech solution for it? What's the tech solution for it? What's the tech solution for this? And sometimes it's just USSD that will solve it. Maybe it's just something very, very simple that will solve it for the user. How do you like navigate around preventing people from actually always going to think of is a tech solution straight off, instead of actually sitting down to actually think through things of what will actually really work and have the best impact, all those kind of things?
Yeah, no, great question. I think you do it painfully and slowly, right? And I think sometimes you kind of pick your battles as well. So because you have to work with these people every day, right? So you don't want to be the person that they just don't want to work with because you are always insisting on one way. So if you might have an agenda like, hey, I want to get my team to be more user focused. And so maybe that's one, like maybe 1 out of 10 projects, we do this exercise, right? And then ultimately, I mean, my belief is that our leadership is generally driven by results, right? And so if we go through that process for 1 out of 10, and then that is the project that now overshoots in terms of its the results, right? Then what did we do on that project, right? And then you can ask, we went through this approach, and and so that might be a reason for you guys to do that more and more and more. So I would say try it, slowly, and kind of get people to see the usefulness of it. the truth is that sometimes it takes a bit more time, right? Because sometimes people want to just talk about the solution. But as much as possible, we should be trying to encourage our stakeholders and the teams we work with, like, hey, let's look at this problem, right? And just kind of talk about what the problem is, where the customer is coming from, the pain points, and then try to kind of go at it that way. Product management is a difficult job, right? It's not always fun because you're talking with people. You have to. Again, everything is difficult in its own way, but it has its own peculiarities that you have to just be ready to like manage people, manage their feelings sometimes and things like that. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Yes, it does. It's mostly dealing with people and changing the way they see things.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
I think you want to do it carefully, right? And not just like impose your views, 100%. Because as PMs, we technically, these things, like the engineers don't necessarily report to us, right? So it's a lot of soft leadership, right? It's not like I'm going to rate you badly on this. And like, yeah, you don't want to do that. But you want to make sure that they do believe in you, they believe in your soft leadership, and that, you're always about them, you support the customer. And I think over time, hopefully, they start to kind of buy in. And then, yeah, my pleasure. I wanted to talk, I think it was Mary Blessing that asked the question about.
Okay, thank you 100%, Victor. I think this is very very insightful session. Strategy is pretty critical. It's constantly evolving, but it's always important to have it at the beginning. I just wanted to add a bit of value to the question the other gentleman asked. A lot of times it's easy for us to want to look at things from a sort of like a narrow point of view, and that's a very practical question. There's a problem and everyone is thinking of an app, but the USSD solution could just achieve the same results. But what I wanted to say is that sometimes it's important to look at it a lot more holistically. So senior managers may be talking about go and build an app, not just because they want to solve a particular problem, but they have seen a whole suite of challenges that exist in the macro environment that they may be interested in tackling, because it's the macro environment before it comes to the industry, before it comes to your company, before it comes to your users, right? So in strategy, just to add to some of the things Victor had mentioned, it's beyond the customer, right? It's beyond who are you solving for. There's a bigger set of constraints you have to consider, as the political environment, economic, social environment, with the climatic conditions that you just have to sort of understand clearly as a PM before you come out with your own particular product strategy. It's interrelated and it has to infuse into the holistic picture for the brand or for the company you work with. Thanks.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point. And if we use like personal finance, somebody was alluding to devaluation, right? And so if you are doing something in the investment space and you're only focused on the Naira, for example, you're just ignoring everything going on with inflation, that would sort of be a bad look, right? Because it's like you're not factoring in your macroeconomic conditions. And then I wanted to just talk real quick about the question about competitive analysis. So there are a number of frameworks to analyze your competition. I think one that I learned recently that I kind of really like is kind of looking, it's four not criteria, but 4 areas: narrow, form, need, and resource competition, where your narrow competition is sort of what you would typically see as your regular competitor, like Netflix and Blockbuster, for example. They do exactly the same thing. Or sorry, Disney Plus, for example, like they are showing you streaming services and they're online. And then if we use Netflix as the example, a firm is somebody that does kind of what you're doing, but in maybe in a general form, right? Like, so going to the movies, you're still watching something, but you're going to the movies to watch it instead of sitting at home. And then you have your need constraints, which you're providing the same need. And so what is the need Netflix is providing? So that takes us to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. and it might be like comfort. So it's like, what else gives you comfort, right? And there are a number of things that might fall into that place. And I think it's interesting because it gives you a broader way of looking at your competition. So you don't just say, I'm a personal finance app. All my competition is only apps, right? There are a number of things that are competing with you that is good to kind of keep an eye on. And I think lastly is the resource. I had an interesting thing about the CEO of Netflix, and it was like Netflix is actually competing with sleep, right? Because it's like when people finish binge watching Netflix, they go to bed. How can we get them to like watch 1 extra hour, stuff like that? And so that was just really like, oh my, like really, So you see, so you can imagine if you're thinking about sleep as your competition as Netflix, there are a number of things that you might do differently. Like if you look at the feature about, next episode, and it just loads automatically and it doesn't need you to press anything on the button, right? And then that's where, like, when you say great power comes with great responsibilities, do you keep doing that? Or at some point you're like, are you still with us? Are you awake? and then it stops there. So you ultimately have to balance that sometimes where you create apps that are really addictive. So that's a little bit about competitive analysis. There are a number of frameworks that we can use that are available out there. So yeah, thank you so much.